There are two kinds of wounds. There's the wound that makes you think you're less than others, and there's the wound that makes you think you're better than others. And the less than others, at least they know they have something to work toward or learn. The ones who are there have nothing to learn, and it's like the biggest tragedy because they just live their lives in the dark, thinking everything they do is great and ignoring all the results. And also, just learning from your experiences that doing something and failing and letting that be a learning lesson. So letting the failure be a learning lesson. Okay, I'm doing something wrong. Humility is the most important thing you can have for change. If you really want to have a big change. Like a lot of people come just to hear what they already want to hear. Like codify this into 5 principles I can then apply to my life. But humility to recognize, what got you here won't get you there, as the saying goes, right? And to say at some point, if you really want to change and are really stuck, I know nothing. I'm letting go of everything. And I'm sort of gonna relearn with a childlike mind.
Action is the antidote for despair. Action is the prescription for success. How can you have one word, one theory be the antidote for something while being the prescription for another? That's a powerful something. Action. Will Smith said it when he was being interviewed by Tavis Smiley. I'm gonna work harder than the next guy. If I'm on a treadmill, I'm gonna die on a treadmill. Because no one wants to live in uncertainty and ambiguity, and we live a life of ambiguity. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what I'm going to do. Because you never have to move in ambiguity. Instead, just say, I'm afraid to leap. Help me leap. Help me leap. Help me get the courage to leap. Because I don't want to live a life on the edge. Just say that.
It's funny, there are all these books about happiness, right? I think 10% happy, or all these books about happiness. And there's a problem, I think, with that goal of reaching for happiness, which is you've got other emotions, right? Sometimes you're gonna be sad, sometimes you're gonna have anxiety, sometimes you're gonna have fear. Like, we have many emotions. And if you feel like I need to be happy all the time, when you're not happy, you're gonna feel like something's off. But what I think of it is this: you're born pure and fresh and vulnerable and spontaneous and in the moment, and slowly through life experiences and your caregivers, you get loaded with a lot of baggage. And I think one of the goals of life is how much of that baggage can you cut away before you leave this planet. We're running on this operating system, and we're all running on this operating system. This operating system was programmed in our first years of life. We're born without the architecture, and the architecture is built by our childhood experiences. Sure. So all these connections are made whereby I think a child makes 700 new neural connections a second. So a 3-year-old has twice as many neural connections as we do. And then as you grow up, as new ones are forming, there's a process called pruning, so the ones you don't use go away. So your brain is really shaped and built by what you're seeing with your caregivers growing up. Like, basically, my friend, he would tell me over and over, you got everything you wanted in the game, why are you still unhappy? Why your relationship's not working. He would have these conversations with me till he was blue in the face. And I would just fight against him. I'd push back. I'd tell him all the reasons why he was wrong. I'd text him why he's wrong, because I'd think of counter arguments later. And it was I was arguing against my own growth, because the things I found the thing I was the most resistant to was what I needed the most. So it's hard. It's so hard to see yourself. And we also have a psychological investment in remaining the same. So it's like you have a friend, you're always trying to maybe cheer them up because they're depressed, or help them with their self-esteem because they're down, but you'll find that people will psychologically fight to hold on to their story because it's all they have.
Can you give yourself permission to live in the duality of your imperfections and your smallness and what you're learning and what you still have to learn, and your greatness and your brilliance and your light? Can you allow them to coexist and then serve them up to the world? To love you, to see you, to inhale you, to judge you, to leave you, to love you. Some of us are just as afraid of being loved as we are to be left. Can you give the world permission to leave you and love you?
We think that we're rational, but really our emotions govern us. We feel something before we ever have an idea or think it. We have to become rational through this process that I lay out in my book. So I don't mean to say that we're negative, because humans are obviously incredible. Look at what we've created. It's outrageous if you think about who we were millions of years ago and where we are now. We're obviously capable of incredible achievements. We're also the most brilliant social animal on the planet. We're capable of cooperating and working on teams to a level that no other animal has ever reached. So there's obviously another side of the story. But to become greater, to become truly human, we have to overcome these forces that I lay out. So for instance, we are built to constantly compare ourselves to other people. we're always thinking of what the other person has and how we are in relation to them. Are we getting as much attention as that other person? It started off when we were children. Are we getting more attention than our siblings from our parents? So we're continually comparing ourselves in rank, in power, in status to the people around us. And this is deep force within us, and it's constant every day, every moment. You don't realize that you're going through that. And social media, it completely exacerbates this tendency in human nature. Another is the contagiousness of emotions, which is extremely powerful. We tend to think of ourselves as autonomous human beings, that we're independent, that I feel affection or anger or frustration on my own. We don't realize how deeply we are affected by the emotions of the people in a group. This is the viral effects. Emotions are extremely contagious. Before the invention of language, we humans had to be able to communicate to one another through just picking up the moods of other people. And if there was a threat to our group or our tribe, the ability to feel fear and anger together bonded us and helped us survive. But that doesn't serve much function in the world today, where viral emotions can be very dangerous and we see a lot of that on social media. I'm really worried about people nowadays. But now my worry is that people are so immersed in their smartphones and their technology that they don't understand people. They're not observing people. And this has been documented in studies that young people, for instance, levels of self-absorption and narcissism have been growing steadily since the 1970s. We are the preeminent social animal on the planet. Our survival depends on how we relate to other people, whether we understand them on some level. And I find a lot of people are increasingly in the world are really bad at observing just basic elements in human psychology. The position I'm in now, I'm a consultant to a lot of very powerful, famous people. I'm not going to mention any names. People fly me out to consult with CEOs, political people who are very powerful, and even in other countries. And the number one problem I find that they have is an inability to understand the people they're dealing with. They hire the wrong partners. They hire the worst assistants who end up ruining their lives. These are people who are technically brilliant. They understand their field. They understand marketing, etc. But they don't understand basics about people around them. And they make terrible hires, or they marry absolutely the wrong person for them in their lives. Their emotions, or their personal relationship, bring them down. So this is like our Achilles heel, and I think it's gotten worse in the world today. So my anger was that people are so focused on technology, but that we need to focus much more on human nature, on understanding people. That's the primary skill that you need in life. There is something deeply ingrained in each individual person, a particular individual nature that we all have, and that causes us to go into compulsive patterns of behavior. Where does it come from? Some of it comes from our DNA, from our genetics, things we can't control, that we've inherited from our parents. Some of it comes from our early attachments, and some of it comes as we get older and we interact with teachers and mentors and various people who create a certain way we view ourselves. If people keep telling us that we're not really worthy, that we're not good students, we internalize that and we end up becoming like that. So it's a mix of things. Each person has a mix of these qualities, and you have to kind of untangle the various strands. And you're right, what I'm saying is you're a mystery to yourself.